Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the facilities meeting Monday, August 2nd to order. It is 6:11 p.m. and I'm going to turn it over to Joe as soon as I ask if there's any public comment on the agenda.
There's no public comment at this time.
Okay, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Mrs. Epstein. The first item on tonight's agenda is the Colonial Middle School solar panels. I just want to kind of remind the board and everyone just a little bit of history. In 2010, we accepted a grant to install solar panels on Plymouth White Marsh High School, Colonial Middle School, and Colonial Elementary Schools. The grant covered the cost in its entirety. In 2010, we entered into a 20-year power purchase agreement known as a PPA with Tangent Energy for each of the affirmed schools to purchase power at 8.25 cents per kWh. And at the time, we were currently paying 16 cents per kWh. The PPA has since been purchased by Brookfield Renewables, who we have been discussing options with since January of 2021. So that kind of leads us into where we are now and our decision on what we need to do regarding the existing solar panels on the current middle school and what to do with them in reference to the new middle school. So with that, I can bring Mr. Jamie Lynch up. I think there's a slide on there. Jamie, Dr. Christian, Mr. Zablowski, we have all worked for the last year, honestly, trying to work with Brookfield and look at any options that we had that we could all bring to the board and, try and give you guys as, a kind of a shopping list of things to pick from. But unfortunately, I think we've narrowed it down to one.
Great. Good evening. Thank you, Joe. Good evening, everyone. Thought I would catch everybody here in person for the first time in a very long time, but good to see you. I think Joe covered it. This discussion on the solar panels really began in 2020 when the PPA ownership was transferred to Brookfield. I've been trying to assist the district ever since then in navigating the way. We've really been doing bi-weekly solar meetings with Joe and Dave's participation all year with Brookfield in order to get to the point where we are today. They've provided recent written correspondence to the district outlining the options, and it's the considered opinion of the team that the termination fee of $675,000 is the appropriate way to go, which limits the district's involvement in purchasing new solar panels for the new building, ultimately taking them off the new building, obviously taking advantage of the preferred electrical rate. And that also comes presumably with the cost of removal that I've estimated as high as $200,000. We've asked the solicitor to once again review your power purchase agreement to make sure that is a correct responsibility that the district has to remove the panels. And should you elect to go this way, we have a couple avenues for how the panels would come off. One is that could be a publicly bid process. Two, there could possibly be a change order with one of the contractors that's on site right now. We'll examine both of those options and probably provide a recommendation back through administration. In either event, we would like to do the right thing with the panels, make sure that they're available for recycling at a proper facility. Since they are 10 years old, there really is not a market value for them to go somewhere else. You wouldn't use them on your home or anywhere else with their diminished capacity. But that pretty much lays out what has really been a 2-year effort to figure out how to handle the power purchase agreement. I think in just the one other component at the end of my presentation tonight, I will comment on where the project budget is. And in the considerations that we've had with the district admin team, this termination fee can be burdened in the project budget without an increase in the overall project budget. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly.
The board will see that between allowances and contingencies that we were able to cover this, and we knew even as a year ago that this was a possibility. We did have our solicitor review the agreement from 11 years ago And the reality is with deregulation, it just, things changed a few years back. So to actually move them over to the new building would not really be cost effective. The district certainly benefited for several years until deregulation and saved a significant amount. But with the new building, and once you see the budget update, I think the board will see this is certainly the way to go.
Jamie, the cost of removal of $200,000 that you're estimating, is that high? I mean, we're not going to all of a sudden be surprised at a $400,000.
I'd like that to be high because I did get quotes for the removal
Okay.
before. Now, we've gone back and forth, depending on who's responsible. Do we have to comply with prevailing wage? We'll obviously go in that direction. But as I said, we have the opportunity to do a competitive bid, but we also have a contractor on site who's working, who may give you beneficial pricing. He is responsible for the demolition of the building, so it is an appropriate type of change order
Sure.
work. And so we'll do whatever we can in order to drop that number.
Great. Thank you.
Is this something that we will need to have a vote on, just specifically on the solar panels in the future? I mean, obviously not tonight, but.
Yeah, I don't believe again, I think it's just informational at this point.
Okay. And then my last question, the panels, just for common knowledge, do you know if the materials that they are composed of can be recycled, or that like they're not going to end up in just a landfill?
Great question. The answer is yes. There's a recycler in the western portion of the state that we contacted, and he gave us pricing for recycling. And so one contractor removes the panels and stacks them on flatbed trucks that the recycler provides. And then they look at the panels and they have a recycling charge depending on how many panels have suffered any type of damage to them. And so that cost has a range on it. But it is a recycler in Western Pennsylvania who takes them. And I'm not exactly sure all of the things that they do with them. They don't recycle them to be new solar panels, but they recycle the components into other types of products.
Thank you.
So this is Eunice. What is the plan? And perhaps you'll get to this in the next slide. I know there was a lot of community interest when we were developing this project and in how we were going to be environmentally conscious in providing power for the middle school. So without the solar panels, what is that going to look like?
So I've already spoken, Mrs. Franklin Becker, with our PICO representative, and we are looking into joining buying clean energy through PICO. It is a much friendlier price to buy clean energy, and it would be very responsible, and it's the same program that the county is part of.
Okay, great, thank you. I do think we should provide a good community explanation, because I know that I've had questions about, well, if you're not going to have solar panels, how could you be environmentally friendly? So I think having a good set of talking points to that would be helpful for the community to understand the route that we're taking.
Okay, great. Jamie, do you want to continue with your middle school update, sir?
Colonial Middle School project. We haven't seen you since the beginning of the summer, and quite a lot has occurred. I'm grateful that I can report to you that the entire roof of the building is now on the building. All of our areas are enclosed. You heard from me in the spring about challenges with respect to the gyms and the kitchen and the locker room. You can see by the aerial photograph on the left that the entire building is now standing. And so we are doing everything that we can to keep things moving forward in all areas of the project. The three-story classroom wing is in many ways closing in on the finish line. And I show you initially the outside because two significant accomplishments have been made this summer. One, the access road that we talked about in the beginning of the project is paved and goes out to New Hope. You can see it in the left-hand photo here. And so we're thankful to both the VOTEC and the township who partnered with the district in order to make that roadway possible. So that's been good. Also in the left-hand photo, we committed to the neighbors on Maplewood Drive that we would finish that side of the 3-story classroom wing first and clean the site as best we could. This drone image is a great display here in July. The building exterior is finished. The windows are in. What you see there for a road will become a paved road this fall. Temporary grass has been planted and we are out of that area of the building. So I think we've upheld our commitment to the folks that are on Maplewood in trying to be as good of a neighbor as we can. And this really worked out well with our contractors on site to clean up and finish this side of the building. In other areas, exterior progress continues across the building. To the left, you see the main entrance. To the right, you see the stairs that lead down to the lower courtyard, which are coming together. So a lot of what we see on the site is really starting to look familiar with a lot of the renderings that you saw from KCBA during design. Exterior brick is being finished, windows are going in, exterior metal panels are going in, and it's really starting to look like a school project and a school building in many aspects. Inside as well, you've heard me talk about the kitchen and cafeteria. It's a pivotal area of the building. We need a kitchen for us to open the building. I'm pleased to say that the concrete slabs are placed. The electrical is in for the kitchen. We're getting ready to receive the freezers for the kitchen this fall. So the push that the project team made here over the summer has really paid off and work is moving. There's still a lot of work to go, but it's been going very well. Inside, over at the 3-story classroom wing, you're starting to see what really looks like a finished building. Terrazzo floors in the hallways, VCT floors in the classrooms, marker boards, casework in the classrooms. We're getting ready for final inspections above the ceiling so that we can start dropping tile. A very large achievement was that power is now inside of this building and we're in the process of distributing it throughout the building. We're getting set for gas to finally be delivered. PECO's had challenges both in the area and related to COVID. And so they are coming through for us. Mid-floor lockers, casework. I think you've seen this on the tours that you've taken. That's moving ahead. On each and every day, you've probably heard of material shortages and issues that are happening both at Home Depot and on other projects. We have them, we tackle them every day the best we can. So we're trying to move forward with all of the work in all of the areas, but it seems to be coming together well. That first floor MEP work is in. We have data cabling stretched throughout the building. It's moving ahead really as planned. 2 huge big box spaces include the auditorium and the gymnasiums, 2 of them. You have the main gym plus the auxiliary gym. The slab was placed in June in the auditorium. You see that on the slide to the left. On the right, just last week, the slabs were placed in the gymnasiums. So there you see finished gymnasium on the right where we have to install CMU walls on the inside, glazing. Our duct work is already up in the air there, and so it's moving along very well. This will be the area, you see that glimmer of light on the right-hand side. That's the last portion of the building to be enclosed. Our MEP contractors are progressing well, installing HVAC units in mechanical rooms, installing the electrical equipment down in the main mechanical room. Our chiller is on the roof and piped. Our oil tank and our emergency generator were received in July, so they are on site and being wired. This building is going to start to generate some static and come to life as these areas start to be powered up. Our HVAC for heating and cooling will be available in the fall, probably in the October timeframe, at which point we're ready with conditioned spaces to start putting finishes on walls and classrooms. We still have a couple of issues on the site. One has to do with the disposal of excess soils that we've talked about in the past. We're continuing to mitigate that challenge. I'll be coming to you at a subsequent meeting to discuss the resolution on the soils. There's a couple of good things happening for how soils can be disposed of. It's not without cost, but we think we have a pathway forward that might be something that is going to be very beneficial. We're also getting ready, now that it's August, for the start of school this year. Great, thank you. With school right around the corner, ready to start, we have to get the site ready for school. That involves, and I have a pointer, but I can't use it on a TV, what we're calling the parking triangle, which is the gray area that's between the two buildings on the slide to your left. We have a plan in place to ensure that buses can get in, parents can get in. We're adding some temporary asphalt so that teachers have places to park. In addition to the parking spaces down on Belvoir, our site fence will be relocated, and we'll be back to the business of making sure that this is a school site first, construction site second. We're also getting ready for occupancy in 2022 with a temporary traffic plan around the building that we've worked on with district admin and also with the building staff, understanding what the transportation route will be while we're working and occupying a new building, but we're going to be demolishing and filling and building a parking lot on the old building. So the team has been way out in front of it, understanding where people park, understanding how parent drop-off works, how the bus traffic works, how security works, how temporary lighting works, so that building can go live with little disruption from what's happening on the site. It's been a very good process with lots of great input, and of course, that'll continue. I mentioned material delivery and labor challenges. They certainly do exist. You've probably seen them in various things that you might be working on or purchasing. So there's a list here of some of the strange items that have become challenges for us. And these all are not simply because of a COVID-related issue, but it has to do with transportation. It has to do with storms in Texas affecting epoxy type products. The list is here. We're working through them really on a daily basis in order to try to improve things, figure out workarounds, and obviously avoid any further delay. And we're working with the district and the entire team on the planning process, getting ready for occupancy. We started having monthly meetings back in November to plan for all those wonderful things like purchasing furniture and purchasing technology and figuring out where appliances go, figuring out what might go in behind the date stone for a time capsule, and all of these things that all of a sudden a move comes up on you and you say, geez, how are we going to do all this? And Joe and his team and everyone on the school team has really been very good in putting these lists together and knocking them out one by one so that a plan is in place. I think hopefully everyone feels very confident that when the time comes and we start to practice in the new building before students go in with presumably temporary occupancy, that we're going to be ready for that time that we move in and hopefully get the lion's share of the work done so that we're not, again, in your way while you're trying to come about the process of education in a new building. So it's been going well. Right now in the existing building, and I think this is one of your agenda items, if I'm not mistaken, we're doing building abatement. Just wanted to provide you with a little bit of information there. Our contractor is Plymouth Environmental, who's been doing a very good job. Here you kind of see the steps where we remove floor tile. We then remove the black mastic. We get down to bare concrete. And then Joe and his team have been going in and painting the floors of all of the classrooms. And this schedule, let me tell you, it's like clockwork. It's like down to the half hour as to what we do. We have to first remove the tile, then remove the mastic, then get down to bare concrete. Then we have to test to make sure there's air clearances so that it's safe to go in. Then we're painting the floor. Then the furniture's going in 85,000 square feet of space. And so the schedule that Joe is working off of with Bill Hamley in the field is right down to the day. And I think we've got it nailed that all the tile we can take out is going to be out. All the rooms that can be painted and the furniture can be put back in are going to be done before teachers come back. Joe, I didn't know if you wanted to tag on to that at all.
Yeah, just to add on, again, as Jamie said, most of it, Bill Hamley's done a great job on Element Environmental. It's really been a team effort, but I think the district recalls that George Donifrey is on staff and he is, we have him licensed and he is a licensed asbestos planner and inspector. And that's been super big to us during this project because he speaks the same language all the people do on site, and we're able to move this along a lot more quickly. And a big shout out to our maintenance crew, because every time we tell them there's 8 or 10 rooms that are available. They run in and paint, and then our custodial crew follows them with cleaning the furniture and putting rooms back together. So Jamie hit it on the head, a real team effort for sure.
Joe, is this the same process you did at the high school when we had to get those classrooms ready?
Yes, minus we did not paint the classrooms at the high school. If you recall, because we were going to use the building stayed, we put the carpet down and then we put a plastic over the top of it to
Okay.
protect it.
But same, taking up the mastic?
Same process, yes.
Thanks.
So this is a big step one in the abatement process. We still have abatement work to do behind existing marker boards and also transite materials that are in the building that have to be removed prior to demolition. But this is a big step one because it gets the floors out of the way and speeds us on our way. The last item to review with you this evening has to do with budget items. We have a couple of modifications to the budget that require increases for two of the project participants, and then an overall budget update. I brought to the admin team back in April the need to increase the materials testing budget. I think we may have talked about that at a facilities meeting as well. For Geostructures, who's providing testing of concrete and steel and fireproofing and floor leveling and all kinds of things for the project. The allowance that we created for them in their contract had run out, and we've examined the remaining work, and we're seeking an increase for them in the amount of $75,000 to carry them through the balance of the project. This service is really just estimated at the time that they propose. The folks from Geostructures don't know exactly who the contractor is or what kind of progress they'll make. So they provide a reasonable estimate. And in this case, we still have fill to do. We're done with our concrete, and we think that this will take care of their services for the balance of the project. So we'd ask you to consider it. A second item is a change order in the amount of just over $34,000 for Wind Gap Electric for the installation of 29 additional duct smoke detectors for the building fire alarm service. This is a life safety item that's necessary. Upon review of the fire system, it was found that we were deficient as far as the number of detectors in the building, and they were added. So these two items are adds to the overall project contracts for these two vendors. Fortunately, throughout, we've had very few cost increases. This is really the first net increase of a change order for a contractor. You might recall that we had a change order for a water drainage system early in the project, and then we had a credit change order for projector equipment. This is an add. Our change order percentage as compared to construction cost is still well under 1%. So the project team is doing very well. And sitting down with the admin team, taking a look at overall project, of course, with the solar and with these two changes, we're still looking at a healthy contingency at this stage, which is about 70% of the project, of over $1.4 million remaining in the project budget. So we are still under that 79.5 budget that I shared with you, what seems like many years ago now, and headed toward completion. So these two items, yes, would be on your agenda for action, presumably this month.
With respect to the smoke detectors, I'm just a little surprised, I guess, because I'm not a construction person by any means, but I would think that the plans would have gone to the township and they would have looked at our fire code things and would have caught that we were short way before now. Am I just like not really understanding the process and how that works? Or
It did, and they did review, and the comment wasn't made, but let me make just one slight differentiation. I mean to say a duct detector, not a smoke detector. It's a duct smoke detector. So please don't think that smoke detectors were missed in the building. These are ones that are in the HVAC system. They're looking for smoke in the system that would shut a unit down so it would not transfer smoke to another section of the building. So it's a portion of the design where the duct detectors were simply not included. So I'm sorry, we can't, we don't have a contract where you hold your design team to a degree of perfection. But this was fortunately found early, and we're in a position to make it right. We got a detailed cost proposal. We've examined it. You know, it's as low as we can make it.
And no additional costs because it's just now being brought to our attention. It would have cost us earlier or now.
Had the 29 been in the bid, you would have seen that number reflected in the bid, and that's the total cost. WinGap will proceed with the duct detectors at that cost.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And any other questions related to the project at all?
We get to October, November, and we really start to see not just the roof, but the doors and everything else and everything getting finished. We will have a specific meeting with the faculty and with the board, with the FMT committee to talk about the date when we were able to move in and how we're going to do that with Joe's team and our faculty. So that'll be after the new year, but we'll have those conversations in October, November. We've already started that plan, but we'll be ready to present it in the coming months.
With respect to the pandemic and COVID and things like, just a question regarding the doors. So the tech school had added those little like foot pedal things. I'm not sure what you call them, where you can open a door with your foot as opposed to turning the handle. Joe, do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I'm aware of what you're talking about.
Is that something that would be helpful? I mean, they liked how it worked out at the tech school because it just was less mitigation, people having to touch things. Is that something that's even efficient to put in a building of this size, or like?
At this point, our hardware has already been ordered because you have to, and hardware in general, because of this decaying system and the Schleg system that we already use, that goes district wide. So we would have to try and break away from that system. And we've tried for years to get away from the big fat key rings,
Right,
and narrow it down to only, a handful of keys. So, again, if the hardware wasn't, Jim, if I'm speaking out of turn, or Jamie, the hardware is already ordered and approved for all the door locks and everything. So, again, I don't know how much of a difference it would actually make. If you watch people walk into doors, a lot of people use their elbows and everything else but their hands.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know how they work, so I just.
Right.
And hopefully I'm way off base, but if the pandemic were to persist for years and years, we would put together a plan for all 7 buildings and come bring it back to FMT.
I wasn't just thinking in terms of COVID, I was thinking like flu seasons and all those other things like in the future that you hit anyway when you have a gazillion germs going around. So
I don't know about you, Chris. I've seen them in ladies' rooms and I can never figure out how to use
I
them.
haven't
So-
seen them, so that's why I was.
I use the door personally.
Okay, so if there's no more questions for Jamie, the next item on the agenda is the paving project at RP, PE, and WE. And Mr. Kiefer is here tonight, and he's going to give the board a brief update on where we are with those paving projects.
It's good to see everyone again. It's been a while since we've been here. In addition to all the work that's going on with the middle school, we're also working with the district on a paving project at 3 of the elementary schools. You may remember we bid that project in late spring, and the goal was to get the paving done this summer. The good news is 2 of the 3 schools, the work is virtually complete. And they're working on the last site now at White Marsh. The contractor is Delaware Valley Paving. They're out of Phoenixville. And so far, we've been very happy with the work they've done. Definitely one of the things Joe and I noticed is the speed with which they operate. I think they paved Ridge Park in 2 days.
Yeah.
So they're really moving fast. The challenge for them is getting all the work scheduled and material deliveries in time. So the first slide here is of Ridge Park. That was the building they did first. That job is complete. We've had our civil engineer go look at it. He generated a short punch list, so there's just a few items that they have to look at. But that site is pretty much finished. The second project is Plymouth. Plymouth was the largest of the three, really had an east lot and a west lot. They did the west lot first, and they came back a week later and did the east lot. In addition to the paving, we also did some concrete work at the school. We had in the contract to replace the island curb that was in the center, and we added replacing the sidewalk that's right in front of the building at the main entrance. This work we did by a change order. After evaluating the actual conditions, there was a lot of broken concrete there. While we were out there and we had a contractor on board, it made a lot of sense to add that additional work.
Yeah, and if I can just add, having a contractor there mobilized and already connected to getting concrete for us already on the projects, saves us money for sure.
Joe, do I recall that the sidewalk and the macadam there are at the same level?
That's exactly was. one of
So
our-
I guess when they tore it up, it wasn't good for the sidewalk.
Right. Well, the sidewalk unfortunately was already, once they got to it, there was many
It wasn't damaged
imperfections.
by the contractor.
Yeah.
It had been deteriorating.
No, but I would assume it'd be different maybe if there were a curb, but there
Right,
wasn't.
correct.
So,
There was no curb. It's flush, basically across that entire bus drop-off area.
right,
The asphalt's flush with the
right.
curb.
I just have to say, living within view of that parking lot, it was an amazing project to watch from beginning to end. They worked all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Just an amazingly efficient group of people. So nice work to whoever our crew is.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I know that Jim and I were, kind of pleased at the pace that they wanted to go, but we also were on site a lot. I know I drove up on a weekend. I know Jim's been visiting just to make sure that the work was done correctly, because fast isn't always good, but
But you didn't
it
need
was
to, because
fast,
I
but
was watching, Joe.
they have manpower on the
Yeah,
site.
they
so
did.
I think-
And they were working around the
Correct.
township playground project group, and
Yeah, they
really-
worked well with the camp.
Really, I
did.
mean, I didn't see Ridge, but certainly at Plymouth, they did a great job.
Ridge looks really well too.
So on Plymouth, there were two cost items. We had some additional base repair after they milled the surface, identified some additional area that need to be repaired. So we used the allowance, part of the allowance to pay for that. That was $5,600. And I already mentioned the change order for the sidewalk. The last school is White Marsh. When I was out there late last week, they were on site and they were replacing the curb around the main island between the two driveways. That concrete work is now finished. And they're planning on coming in with their milling machine and paving machine yet this week. So it may be that they are finished with the paving by the end of the week. If not, it'll be early next week. They might even come in on Saturday. These guys seem to not mind working on Saturday. The curbing was additional work. There was a condition there where the curb was flush with the driveway. It was in bad shape, but the real issue was because people kept parking on the island grass, curbs were put up on top of the curb to keep people from doing that. With the deterioration and the functional issue, really made sense to replace the curb. And when we replaced it, now it's a full 6-inch reveal. So it should really discourage people from parking where they shouldn't park when they come to the school. I really think it's going to give a much more better appearance, finished job for the project. We really had to be careful drawing a line with what we do and what we don't do on any of these projects. We didn't want to do more curbing than we need to, more sidewalk than we needed to. We're really touching about 10% of the concrete work that's on all three of these sites. And that was really an effort to keep the costs down. So the last slide is a budget update. Just wanted to show the numbers. We're in good shape on the project. We had originally had a construction budget of $561,000. If you remember, we got bids that were competitive and lower than expected. So when it came in at $355,000, we were ahead of the game over $200,000, $205,000. The contract had an allowance built into it. So in that $355,000, there was about $15,000 of allowance. So far, we've used a portion of that. We still have over $9,000 left in the allowance. When they mill over at White Marsh, we might have some additional base repair like we did at Plymouth. So we may use a little bit of that allowance yet. It's yet to be seen. But we're in good shape with that. And the change order totals are just over $50,000. That's really in line with the contingency that we set aside for the project. So overall, we're still ahead of the game. We think we're going to finish definitely in the red here. Where right now we're at $155,000 under the budget, with more than 2/3 of the work finished. Any questions?
So we're in the black.
I'm sorry, we're in the black.
It's in red, but we're in the
font.
black.
The red is the savings. That's how much you're saving on the.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
It's how much we're not, it's actually how much we're not spending.
Exactly.
That's.
So I had dates
That's
on
much
my
more
sheet
accurate.
that say
Yeah.
that red and those parentheses.
Yeah, the red in parentheses is never a good look. So just checking.
Dave was getting ready to block me. I said, Dave, it's not, we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any other questions on the paving project?
Any questions from the board? I turned it so they could see the audience. Adam or Eunice, do you have any questions?
No questions from me. Thank you.
None for me.
Then lastly, I would just like to mention that the not on the agenda, the storms that kind of ravaged through the area 10 days ago through Flowertown, and we had other bad storms locally. Pico reached out to the school district and asked if they could stage some vehicles because they had to bring in lines people from out of state and tree trimming companies. So, between Tim McDonald and myself, we talked to Dr. Christian, and we allowed them to use the high school site. And they have, in return, were generous enough to give a $1,000 donation to the school district that Dr. Christian, I know you already spoke on what you would like to do with that, but I thought the board should know that they were very thankful that the district played a role in helping them get in the community back. And they showed their appreciation through a $1,000 donation.
We're going to partner with, I'm going to give Seth Schramm a call over at the tech school and see how that money can be used as far as assisting some of our tech school students, since this came from an electrical project. And so we appreciated that. We sent a Pico sent us a thank you note. I sent them a thank you note. I got another one back. I'm done sending thank you notes on.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome.
But again,
Thanks for that.
it was again, a good sense of community, and we all communicated, and Dr. Christian said right away, yeah, let them on. And, it was just nice that they
They had crews from New York, New Jersey. They had crews from everywhere. It was
They
quite a
did.
scene.
Yeah, it really was.
I really like the idea of the money going to the programs at the tech school. That's
I think
great.
that's fantastic.
It is a great idea. Fantastic.
So I always like to end on a happy note. So that is the last item on the agenda for this evening.
Okay, is there any public comment?
There's no hands raised at this time.
Okay, any other board comment? And with none? Oh, I'd love to bang the gavel. I've never done this before. I can't bang it on the table. Okay, with none being said, this meeting is adjourned.